The Young and the Restless Spoilers shock. Tessa Porter's complex love story and the tangled web of relationships. The story of Tessa Porter, Mariah Copeland, and the people they've loved is one woven with complexity, unspoken emotions, and unexpected connections. As the relationship dynamics unfold in Genoa City, Tessa's journey, which seems so straightforward on the surface, is anything but simple. Her love life has been intertwined with several key figures in the Newman, Abbott, and Winters families, creating a web of relationships that has had more twists and turns than anyone could have anticipated. Before Tessa found her happiness with Mariah, there was Noah Newman, her last lover before she settled down with Mariah. Their brief romance in Tuscany, a place forever etched in their memories, was an intense chapter that, like many past loves, didn't survive the test of time. Noah, returning to Genoa City after the wedding of his Aunt Victoria to Ashland Locke, couldn't help but find himself still drawn to Tessa. Even though she was now with his sister, Mariah, Noah couldn't deny the lingering feelings he had for Tessa, complicated further by the fact that they shared a deep and personal history. As the drama played out, Noah had a pivotal encounter that would change the course of his life. He met Allie Gwynn, the mysterious granddaughter of Jack Abbott. Allie, whose past and identity seemed like an enigma to most, struck a connection with Noah that he hadn't expected. They quickly became an inseparable pair, their bond deepening as they ventured into Europe, leaving Genoa City behind and thus, fading from the spotlight of the town's ongoing drama. With Noah's departure, Tessa was left to navigate her life with Mariah, but her past with Noah still lingered as a ghost in the background. As time passed, Tessa found herself in a more stable and grounded relationship with Mariah, despite the complicated history that tethered them to others. But just as life seemed to settle, Tessa's feelings and her identity began to come into sharper focus. Tessa was openly bisexual, a fact that she had made clear to those closest to her, but it was something that remained a subtle part of her character. Mariah, it seemed, was also discovering aspects of her own identity that resonated with Tessa's experience, making their bond stronger than ever. Tessa's past love with Noah was not the only complex relationship she had been involved in. Mariah, too, had her own tangled history. Before Tessa, Mariah had been involved with Devin Winters. This relationship had complications of its own, particularly when it came to the issue of having children. The delicate situation of Abby Newman Abbott Chancellor and her husband Chance Chancellor requesting that Devin provide sperm so that Mariah could carry their child created a bizarre and deeply uncomfortable dynamic among the group. The situation was messy, and though it didn't entirely break any relationships, it certainly added layers of tension that no one could have predicted. The unconventional way of expanding the family revealed how much deeper the connections between the characters went, how intertwined their lives were, and how many boundaries they would cross for the sake of love, family, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, with Tessa and Mariah married and Devin moving forward with his own life, the dynamics were still complex. Tessa, while in love with Mariah, couldn't help but reflect on her past. On the choices she made, the people she loved, and the life she had built. But, as Tessa navigated her way through her marriage, it was clear that the complex web of relationships she had been a part of would always haunt her in some way. Would she continue to find peace with Mariah, despite their past entanglements? Would the ghosts of her former lovers continue to linger, or could she finally move forward with her life? The notion of levels in relationships that you mention is certainly apparent. In Genoa City, the relationships among the Winters, Newman, and Abbott families are layered, complex, and constantly evolving. There's always a new level of tension, drama, or revelation waiting just around the corner. As Tessa and Mariah navigate their marriage, they must contend with not only their own pasts but also the heavy expectations and shadows cast by the families they are now a part of. In the end, Tessa Porter's love story is not just about who she chooses to love, but about understanding the fluidity of relationships, identity, and how sometimes, life throws you into situations you never saw coming, where your heart and mind must work together to make sense of the chaos. As for Mariah, her love for Tessa is undoubtedly real, but the questions surrounding their past relationships, and how they shape their future, continue to be a theme that will resonate for years to come. Married, but crossed boundaries, a tale of temptation and secrets. The love story of Mariah Copeland and Tessa Porter had always been one of deep connection and mutual respect, but life in Genoa City was rarely so simple. For a long time, fans of the young and the restless had been on the edge of their seats, waiting for the inevitable unraveling of their seemingly perfect relationship. Mariah, in particular, seemed to be caught between the complexities of her career and the weight of her love for Tessa. But what fans hadn't known, what had yet to be revealed, was that the situation would soon take an unexpected and troubling turn. Mariah, ever the strong, independent woman, had thrown herself into her work with Cassidy first, but it was during this trip that things started to fall apart. Her connection with Tessa had always been one of deep emotional intimacy, but the stress of long hours, the demands of her job, and the increasing tension between them started to take its toll. The real trouble began when Mariah crossed a line she couldn't easily come back from, something that could change the course of her relationship with Tessa forever. There were whispers of a man, someone no one had ever seen before, who had somehow become a part of Mariah's life. This stranger seemed to be just what Mariah needed to distract herself from the increasing strain she felt in her personal life. It wasn't just a fleeting connection, it was a moment of weakness, one that Mariah would struggle to keep buried. While Tessa was at home, anxiously awaiting Mariah's return, Sharon Newman, Mariah's mother, was dealing with her own issues. But when the truth came crashing down, Sharon, as well as Tessa, would be forced to confront Mariah's secret. Could Mariah ever truly come clean? Would she admit to the mistake she made before Tessa, or worse yet, before Sharon? The question loomed, in a same-sex marriage, would infidelity with someone of the opposite sex carry a heavier weight? Would it be more painful or difficult to overcome? The idea of infidelity alone was devastating, but when mixed with the complexity of their love story, the fallout would likely be more intense than anyone expected. Meanwhile, in a twist of fate, the return of Danny Romalotti to Genoa City was just what the town needed to add even more drama to an already turbulent situation. He arrived with his wife, Christine Cricket Blair, for their wedding, but it was clear that Danny's return had another, more pressing purpose. He wasn't just back for the celebration, he had a son, Daniel, who was in deep turmoil. Daniel Romalotti had faced his own set of heartbreaking events. Losing his job, followed by the untimely death of a serious relationship, had left him emotionally shattered. Struggling to find himself, Daniel had sought solace in the most unlikely of places, a local park, learning guitar with a woman who had her own story to tell. And while Daniel was working through his pain, it seemed his heart was not entirely closed off. He had connected with Tessa Porter, someone with her own complicated past. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt that spark again. But Tessa was married to Mariah, and the question became, would Daniel, in his fragile state, risk crossing the line with her, despite the complications? What was clear to everyone involved was that no one was immune to temptation, and sometimes the bonds we think are unbreakable are more fragile than we realize. As Tessa and Mariah struggled with the realization that their love might not be enough to keep them together, Daniel's return added yet another layer of complexity to the already tangled relationships in Genoa City. It wasn't just about Tessa and Mariah anymore. It was about the entire community, intertwined by love, loss, and betrayal. As secrets began to surface, each character found themselves faced with difficult choices. Choices that would determine the course of their lives moving forward. Could Mariah and Tessa find a way to rebuild what was broken, or would Mariah's betrayal be too much to overcome? Would Daniel, in his pain and confusion, make a choice that would further complicate his life and Tessa's? And, in the midst of all the turmoil, could Genoa City survive the aftershocks of these tangled emotions, or would it collapse under the weight of love, regret, and the consequences of actions taken in moments of weakness? As these questions loomed large, the lives of the characters we had come to know and love were hanging in the balance, and the future of their relationships seemed as uncertain as ever.